Hello, thanks for joining us today. Today we're here to talk about the impact of COVID on the CBD industry, with a particular focus on retail. Certainly this year has been quite a shift in just about every industry, and CBD is certainly no exception. So we're going to dig in a little bit this morning around where the CBD industry is today, what has shifted this year, and what does that mean for the future as we look to 2020, 2021, and beyond. Also zoom in particularly on some consumer behavior shifts that are really driving the overall market and a lot of the great indications on where the market is growing over the forecast period. So my name is Bethany Gomez. I'm the Managing Director of Brightfield Group. And for those of you who are not familiar with Brightfield, we are a market leader in the consumer insights and market intelligence for the CBD space. We've been working in this category for a number of years and look at the market from a variety of angles, including the consumers, markets, innovations, and brands. Where is the market today? So the US hemp-derived CBD market is expected to reach $4.7 billion in total retail sales by the end of 2020. Now, this is a growth of about 14% over 2019 sales, so significantly slower than during 2019. There's strong recovery that is expected through the back half of this year, with strong growth continuing through 2021 and beyond, particularly following the expected growth from FDA guidance into the category. The first half of 2020, CBD companies are experiencing a loss in revenue due to some store closures, as well as some consumer concerns around the coronavirus and their finances. Some shelter-at-home policies caused a pause in hemp-derived CBD sales through many brick-and-mortar retailers that were temporarily shuttered in March, while grocery, drug, and health food stores remained open as essential businesses during this time. Many other retailers selling CBD products, such as vape shops, CBD specialty retailers, either closed temporarily during the crisis or only offered curbside pickup and delivery. The market is primarily driving forward with continued innovations from CBD leaders in particular, but the category is also really being negatively impacted right now from a total growth standpoint by price compression. That is actually really good news for retailers who have really been gunning for CBD products to become much more approachable in price point for their customers to drive further sell-through. Price compression has really been very dominant in the category over the past 6 to 12 months, and that has really brought prices down and made CBD much more accessible to a wider range of Americans, even prior to the COVID-19 crisis hitting. Some of the expected categories to pick up in 2021 and 22, including really strong growth through pharmacies, grocery, and mass, as well as many of the ingestible categories, are still seeing very strong consumer penetration and sell-through. Drinks and pet CBD are some of the fastest growing categories in 2020, albeit from some smaller bases, with tinctures still retaining the highest share of market in 2020, with gummies experiencing some strong additional growth there as well. So what does this look like from a distribution channel lens? So certainly in 2020, we did see very strong growth into e-commerce. This is very much to be expected as the world went into shutdown in March. We saw a very large spike in e-commerce in Q2 in particular. However, we are still seeing strong adoption in CBD through a wide variety of other categories. And as we look at consumer behaviors and how those are indicative of future trends, we are still expecting to see very strong growth through a number of key channels through the end of 2025. The first there being pharmacies. Pharmacies are a strong channel today, largely with very high sell-through in independent pharmacies that are offering a wider variety of ingestible products. And I bring this up because expecting FDA decisions surrounding the permittance of ingestible CBD products in the middle of 2021, this will really drive in the ability of pharmacies to be able to sell a wider portfolio of ingestible products to consumers, and will really need to continue to be supported through in-store education, but will provide a really strong opportunity for that pharmacy channel. Convenience stores and gas stations are already seeing a really strong growth trajectory right now, up to 4% of the category in 2020, which is a strong growth trajectory from essentially 0% in recent years expected to grow up to 7% of the overall category by 2025. Some strong additional growth expected through the grocery, food, and mass categories as well. Independent retailers have really been disproportionately affected by COVID. Pre-COVID, independent retailers and CBD specialty stores had really much better sell-through than large chains. And this was largely because, A, of their ability to carry ingestible products, in addition to topicals, but also really because of their ability to provide a strong level of education to consumers. This is something that remains a challenge with larger retailers, being able to really educate consumers about CBD products. So, that's something that there's a lot that can be gained there, and there was a lot of movement being made in the era of in-store education of consumers before COVID hit. Unfortunately, many of those efforts have been temporarily paused as collateral and face-to-face interactions with customers is not necessarily encouraged during the pandemic. However, those efforts will be re-engaged, again, as the pandemic concludes. During COVID, many independent retailers and CBD specialty stores are still shut down or have decreased foot traffic. Many are also unable to reopen for financial reasons. So, many stores, there's thousands of independent businesses across the country are really struggling during COVID and are not necessarily able to survive significant lockdowns. And so the overall number of outlets in both for CBD specialty retailers as well as for many different types of retailers that may not be CBD dominant may not be able to open their doors again at the end of the crisis. So there's a disproportionate effect there. And one thing that is particularly interesting here is that for those stores, like the independent pharmacies or those stores that are carrying ingestibles, the more independent grocery retailers that are carrying ingestibles, many are seeing up to 20 times as much as high sales, in grocers that ingestibles are allowed. So that's definitely a trend. As soon as once the FDA does give guidance on ingestibles, that will give a really strong opportunity for those retailers to be able to capitalize on that trend. But again, the key to success in that area certainly relates to the ability to educate consumers directly there. So how are consumers responding to COVID? 39% of consumers are using CBD more frequently. This is unsurprising given that the pandemic is very anxiety riddling, and there's a very large focus as a nation on mental health right now. So for people who are CBD is considered essential, they're really using these products for a great deal of not looking to decrease consumption, even if they take a hit to their income. 41% of CBD consumers have actually reported increased their spending on CBD during the crisis, again, as it relates to increased consumption and an increased focus on self-care, with a particular focus on millennials. 52% of millennial consumers are increasing their spend on CBD products. So it's younger generations who are really over-indexing as heavy CBD users right now are the most likely to have both decreased and increased spending on CBD, uncovering a wide divide with this age cohort. So while the group relies on CBD for relief from stress and anxiety, many are also dealing with job loss or other financial struggles. So for people who were just dabbling in the category and trying new products, there in that category, we're seeing some people not continue to repurchase, but for people who have really considered this to be part of their daily routine and essential for their well-being, they have maintained, if not increased, their consumption patterns. And as consumers shift to mass merchandise clubs and other grocery, areas, we're seeing some shifts in those overall consumer patterns there as well. This is those consumers have a tendency of being more male, as well as being younger. This is being accelerated by the crisis as well. More men are going into the stores and purchasing CBD through these channels, particularly those under the age of 40. There's more of moderate and heavy users, that are purchasing products. There's not as much discovery, new product discovery that's been happening during the crisis, but there's, for those people that are already using on a regular basis, then they are looking for CBD through channels that they're already going to anyway, and that are already open, like grocers, mass merchandisers, or clubs. Product preference, people are People used to think of the first and the most primary driver of their product selection was which product is going to have the most impact on me, what is going to produce the best desired effects. And now in Q2, this has really shifted to price. Consumers are overwhelmingly price driven in Q2, so can definitely be swayed over by sales. Now what? There are strong growth opportunities for retail, in 2021 and beyond. Certainly an eye out for that FDA guidance, but the FDA has been active in July, certainly giving strong indications of acceleration in terms of their plans. So middle of next year does appear to be the time frame that we're looking at there. So brands should really be, and retailers should really be ready for that. CBD brands will be focused on D2C in the immediate term to buoy sales during COVID, but are already really looking at big box stores to be able to expand their reach in 2021 and beyond. Those D2C marketing efforts in the immediate term may be able to help drive name recognition, which should improve sell-through as in 2021 and as consumers come back into the stores. Mass merchandisers, CBD consumer will keep buying similar products if the price is right. So discounts are definitely a strong way to drive trial, as in-store activations and consumer education is not currently available. Is much more challenging in the current environment. So that's all for right now. Thank you so much.